Good afternoon. Okay, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today on a very important topic. When you look at it, it looks very trivial. When you talk about job titles, it's a very trivial topic when you look at the face value. As you go deeper into it, you realize the importance of that in what we do in organizations. We are going to talk about job titles, the scope and qualifications, and how they are evolving given the technological changes, the issues around sustainability that have been talked about. One of the key challenges that I see as we look at this is that when you look at most organizations in Zimbabwe, you'll find that they're structured in a way that is hierarchical, very high top heavy. On average, you look at structures, if you count from bottom to the top, at the maximum of 12 layers. Okay, that's the highest. Globally, you're looking at 5, with your top companies that are all over the world, around 6 and 7 layers. But we've got 12 in some organizations. I'm just saying, go to your core business and count. If you've got an operator, like in your case, there's the operator is the last person in the business. You count that box until it gets to you. How many boxes do you have to go through in order for you to get to the CEO? So if you've got 12, 11, 10, you are actually way, way above the benchmark of 5 layers. Optimally structured organization with only 5 layers. But again, it also depends on the size of the organization. We would expect global organizations, multi-locations, to have more layers than those that have got very few that are based in one location. So that's the challenge that we are seeing there. We also do know that qualifications, titles, there is inflation around them. I'm sure you have noted. People want to be called managers, people want to be called the executives, people want to be called the chiefs. I'm sure you have seen a proliferation of those, chief director, chief this, chief this. So we may have even chiefs around us here, among us here. It's nothing against you, it's how the organization is structured. I'm speaking to the organization, not you. You were given a job, so don't worry if I do mention something that is personal to you. But I think we are ignoring the shift in the global trends, especially in terms of technology and where others are going. We are seeing, if you remember, I think when we went into the GNU, there were certain things that happened. For example, we moved with a lot of people. We thought we had a glorious opportunity to increase the head count, to such an extent that a few months later, I think in 2010, the beginning, first quarter of 2010, you started seeing companies rationalizing because they pegged themselves in a very high cost structure because of some of these things. So those are some of the things that we see in Zimbabwe. Centralized decision making, very prominent. The structures, functionally structured. You're in HR, so you have to do HR. You're in finance, you have to do finance. Whilst others are going project-based structures. At a given time, what is the key priority for the organization? We put the best team that can do the job. In our case, if you are in marketing and you say, I want to go and help in engineering, they will say, what engineering do you know? The same applies with the other way. But if you look generally, I think it's the trend globally as well, you'll notice that there are certain professions where any background will do. One of them is banking. Some of your best bankers are engineers. I'm sure you've noticed. Some of your best HR people are actually engineers as well. So sometimes let's not restrict ourselves to the profession that we've started. I've seen a lot of people who have actually gone out of their profession to do other things. Where restrictions are really tight is in medicine and some of the engineering sides. But the rest of the professions, anyone can go in there, as long as they got the capacity. But I do know that people want to protect their turf, so they don't want people there. So they've come up with all sorts of regulations, including in the HR. I remember at some stage I wanted to hire an actuary to do HR. They said, why would you want to do that? But I went ahead anyway, and they did a brilliant job. I also hired a chemist to do HR, and they are now an HR manager somewhere, very senior. Because I don't look in those kind of fields, I really don't look at the background that we have. You just need someone who can think and do the job. You don't need to waste time about what people have done, as I will show you. So when you look at structures, that's how top-heavy most of the structures that we find in this organization. You have too many managers managing other managers. That's what you find. So you've got a manager who needs an office to sit there and manage other managers, adding costs and very little value. The concept of a manager is that when you are put as a manager, you must be able to add value to the people that you are supervising. In most cases, it's the other way around. They're actually taking away value from the people that they're managing. Okay, so we keep on adding. The other common structure that we find is that what we call one-on-one reporting structure. You've got an HR manager with an assistant HR manager. Then below the assistant HR manager will then have officers and clerks. Okay, so we've got a buffer structure, a buffer role. So anyone who wants to go to the HR manager will have to go through the assistant. Okay, that's the challenge that we see. Those are called one-on-one reporting structure. They are very common. And I hear most people saying it's for succession planning. When you say, do you have a formal succession planning in place, they say no. So I don't know where the succession planning is coming from. It's just a way of justifying some of these things. I went into our database of registered job applicants. This is what I found. 52,000 registered, distribution in terms of gender, 53% male, 46% female, with 71.6, with 72% of the people having a degree. Okay, the actual figure is actually much higher because this is a convenient sample. If you actually do a random sample, it's actually much higher. The same applies, it says 18% master's degrees, the figure is actually much higher. The last time we did another survey, we found that almost about 72% of professional level staff have got a postgrad professional qualification. Okay. You can see that Zimbabweans are going to school in a very big way. Then average years of experience, you can see there, 3.5 years, median 2, and entry level kind, 0 to 2 years experience. But you'll be surprised that when we are hiring, most of the time we require 10 years experience. And most of people really don't understand that more years of experience do not necessarily lead to better performance. And it's well proven. Some of the figures, when you look at it, it's actually arbitrary. The numbers that we give. You want a finance manager and say, I want 8 years experience of doing what? Where did you get the 8 years? It's Samsak, the figure. But if you go to a website called ONET, you'll find that that's where the standard for job description is. If you want to find a standard job description, you can go to a website called ONET, done by the Americans, but done well, because the people who produce those job descriptions are subject matter experts. In our situations, our job descriptions are produced by the incumbent. When you ask them, what qualification do you need, they put what they have, not what is required for the job. When you say what experience is required, they put what they have and what is not required for the job. So you can see the distortions. And what are the implications? The implications are many. One, you overgrade jobs or undergrade based on that. You are going to hire people that you don't require, overqualified or underqualified because of that. So there is a gap, a huge gap in the hiring process in this country because of that. Job evaluation distorted because we are effectively grading people, not grading the actual job that is going to be done. So we are misallocating the value in job evaluation. Remember, job evaluation is a process of job pricing. So we are pricing on the basis of wrong factors. Those are salary ranges, but what are the top sectors of interest to people? Mbaye, I'm sure you will be interested in manufacturing. People want to go into manufacturing. But we are investing very little into manufacturing in terms of capacity and skills. Capacity building. Banking, I don't know what is happening with banking. People don't want to go there anymore. Then educational background, I think this we have already talked about. Let me move. What are the common job titles that you find? The accountant. Chartered accountants here, you may need to rethink how we are doing this profession. There is a challenge there. You may actually be overproducing. on the accountant side. If I were to advertise a chartered accountant as we speak now, by the time we walk out of here, we'll have close to 40 qualified chartered accountants as I walk out of this room. And that on its own supply and demand, the salaries will naturally go down. There's no other way. You will be defying economics if that does not happen, and that is already happening from what we are seeing. And most of them are willing to take anything. There are people who are actually willing to take anything around that. We talked about years of experience, but I'll skip that. So what are the global job market trends when you compare with what we are seeing here? Others are investing in AI, machine learning, data, analytics roles with that growth. Digital skills, you can see. Then green transition, we were talking about sustainability. Healthcare growth, there's a big growth around that. Then information security is also key. Those are the professions where people are going. Let's compare what is the trend in terms of the data that we have and what is happening globally. We are moving more people into management, others are moving more people into specialist roles. So there are more opportunities in management than in actual people who do the job. And that is a misallocation of resources, if you ask me. Sales and marketing, administrative jobs, IT and engineering, only 82%. But look at what is happening globally in terms of movement and percentages. Huge movements there. When you compare to ours, it also you can see that we are really not primed for AI when you look at that. Then you compare to the global. People still want to stick to the old model. This is why probably we are not seeing many of the innovations that are happening globally, happening under the architecture of AI infrastructure that is being built around the globe. Because if I were to ask you now, others are, every day we are saying this company, 4 billion, this company, what billions? We are nowhere near that, okay? The only company that is close to getting to $1 billion is INSCO, isn't it? Okay, the rest, it's small amounts. Most of the companies that we have locally, Google's wage bill is much, much bigger than most of them. Probably even 60% of our companies, the wage bill for, maybe even higher. The wage bill for Google alone is huge. Apple, all those global companies. Okay? So comparison in terms of local supply, you can see there. Where I say high demand gap there, you can see the tech and digital roles, management positions. We are reasonably within the range in terms of mix, but we are short on some of the areas. Administrative roles, they are declining, but we're increasing. I don't know why. If you look around, you still find all the managers still want secretaries. I don't know what they'll be doing. Nothing against secretaries, but if you're a businessman, you must structure your business in order for you to deliver value. But we still see a lot of secretaries around. What I would do, I would upskill them to do much higher value work. Given that most of those secretaries that we are seeing are actually degreed. Have you noticed that? Majority of them, including your clerks and messengers, they are all now degreed. So someone is carrying a bag of letters to deliver and with a degree. Okay, that's a challenge that we need to look at. Those are the areas that we need to invest in. So what are some of the key challenges? We talked about the structures and the inefficiencies that we see. So what does our research show? This is other research that we have done. We talked about top-heavy and the layers. Then the inflation, the title inflation epidemic is really real. I'm sure you have noticed. Everyone wants to be called a director. Okay, if people are fighting to be called a director. Others have even gone to court, you can Google, to just retain the title director, that have been downgraded. The job is the same. You've just been given a new title, but they still want to maintain the title director. The qualification inflation, I think we are all witness to that kind of trend. That is happening. Okay, so when you look at it, if you've got those structures where you've got 12 levels, so I want you, when you go back to your office, to just look at your structures and say, how many boxes can I count from the lowest? Don't count the messenger because they are not core business. Count from your core business. If you're a bank, maybe you can start with the bank teller or a back office clerk. Then you count up to the CEO and say, how many boxes do we get to? And if you are getting over 6 boxes, you may need to go back to the drawing board. It's actually overstaffed in terms of the raw layers that are there. Okay? Then the number of direct reports, the standard is that the average is 8. We're averaging 4 to 6 in terms of the number of the direct reports. For CEOs, we actually did a survey. It's 4.5, which is basically 5 direct reports. And the argument that is being given is that I can't supervise all these people. I can't be in a meeting with all these people. Why do you want to supervise directors? They are not to supervise. They give you advice. So you can't. So why would you worry? Because it's not carrying physical material. Okay, you are actually, it's a thinking job. The CEO get advised so that they can make the right choices in terms of strategy. It's not the other way. If you find that there is a CEO who is advising their subordinates, they're in the wrong job. They're not supposed to be there. So that's why you find they want very few people because they want to manage them. They want to micromanage them. Apple, at some stage, Tim Cook had 18 direct reports, and it worked because he was not supervising them. He was getting advice from them. In our case, we are going the opposite of what the global trend is in terms of direct reports. So you can see, so these create also unnecessary hierarchies in our organizations. So what are the key issues that arise out of that? More managers, higher payroll, low productivity, because we are supervising people who are not supposed to be supervised, slow time to market, reduced innovation. Innovation in Zimbabwe, if you look at the global trends, I'm sure you're aware, we are in the bottom 25 in terms of the global innovation index. Also, we are in the bottom 25 in terms of the global talent competitiveness index. Don't worry about that noise, Zimbabweans being educated, and that's for home consumption. When you now compare, we are not very competitive in that. It's good to tell ourselves that we are very good. And I've seen people mentioning some of the very good people that are doing very well in wherever they are, in America and everything. But the question that you must ask yourself is, are we the only ones doing those wonders? What about Nigerians? What about Ghanaians who are out there? So when we are making comparisons, we need to make the right comparisons. Zimbabweans are doing extremely well, but they're not the best in the world. Okay? They are competitive, but probably we don't have enough of them. We would want to have more of those James Manyika and others in the global world. That's a good one, if you can do that. Then, so these are some of the titles. I'm sure you have seen them in your organization. Why would you want to call someone senior? And I'm just wondering. Okay, so they are still doing exactly the same job, but now with the title senior or a chief. The person is a director there, but they got a prefix now called chief director. Senior HR manager, senior director. Okay. The problem is that the moment you do those prefixes to your titles, you are increasing costs. That's number one. You are also increasing expectations for the people. Because no one wants to be called the chief director or a senior HR manager and not walk and not drive a good car. Because the title has to go with the car and the benefits. And that's what we are seeing in the market. We have seen people saying, I'm looking for a car to give my chief director or my senior HR manager. I said, what has changed? The job scope has not changed, but the title has shifted. And very soon, even in HR, we are going chief HR officer, chief this. To me, it's neither here nor there. The job remains the same. It must be about value. But I do know the impact that title, people love generally titles, and it's okay. But if you're running a business, you may need to look at that. Because the work can still be done with the normal titles. Most of the people are just managers. Not this chief, senior this, senior that. And the other word that is being abused is executive. It has lost its meaning now. Okay? Executive vice president, executive senior manager, executive this, all these roles. If you maintain a lean structure, and just use the word manager and pay people well. That's what is required. Those people, I see most of the time when you look at all those chief, they are poorly paid, so they are compensated through titles. Okay. I have not seen an organization that pays well, that obsesses itself with titles like chief, senior, and whatever. I can still be an HR manager and you can still double my salary and I'm okay with it. Rather than calling me chief director and give me an extra $20 for chief director, for the prefix of the chief director. It doesn't make sense. Then qualification inflation, what we are seeing on this is really a problem. And you as the people in the industry, you may need to reflect on this. We are missing talent because we are overpricing qualifications. For example, I'm sure you've noticed someone is looking for an accountant, they say a chartered accountant, first degree, whatever, which is normal standard. Then they're going to say an MBA is an added advantage. Who said that for an accountant? Do you think an MBA accountant will do better than an accountant with a first degree? Not necessarily. They just need to know what they are doing as an accountant first, isn't it? When they go to do an MBA, they are adding to what they already know. So you can't just go and pick someone with a first degree in accounting and say, if you got an MBA, I must be better. That does not work like that. And there is ample research to support that. The same applies with the experience. Okay? Very few jobs require more than 6 years experience. Even senior roles, they don't require that. I know at CEO level, they say 10 years experience, and again, that is doubtful if you go back to some of the research. So what is happening is, we all apply for the job, but I don't have a master's degree, as an example. But I'm a very good accountant. I get sidelined. Because you're saying it's an added advantage. It's an advantage to the candidate, not your business. You see the logic. So it's an advantage to your, so we are seeing most of the adverts, masters preferred. If it's mandatory, just put it mandatory. And who said it's a mandatory? Because if it has been done, a job has been, profile has been done by subject matter expert, they'll tell you it's not. For most roles, very few, I'm sure you're aware that most CEOs in some of the best companies in America, they don't have master's degrees. Have you noticed? Nothing against master's degree. If you go and look at a project called the CEO Genome Project, which is the best study so far done on CEO performance, you will notice that majority of them did not go to most of the Ivy schools, universities, and they don't have master's degrees at all. Okay? So look at that. You see that we are probably doing it the wrong way. So what is the global trend? We are focusing PhD, masters, others are going skills and experience. We are focusing, performance does not reflect high in qualifications. Okay, very few professions where you find an added more years of education lead to better performance. Very few. For those that want to read, Schmidt and Ander did 100 years of research on what drives individual employee performance. Go and read that, it's 100 years. They did another one in 1987, where they did 85 years of what actually drives individual performance. Very few things. It's your brain, your ability to think, your cognitive ability. The second one is integrity. The third one is job knowledge. Job knowledge and qualifications are two different things. You can have, I'm sure you've noticed there are people who are qualified who have no knowledge. This is why you find highly qualified, also highly incompetent in some instances. People who are qualified, everything you can tick on the job profile, but deliver, zero. Then you move them to another department and say maybe they are pressurized, they can't handle pressure. You transfer them to another department, they still fail there. The problem is you are going against what has been proven scientifically. But obviously people want that, but it's okay. So the world is moving away from just these degree requirements for most of the roles. Why would you need a degree for a programmer, for example, a developer? What for? Most of the developers have just gone to ordinary level, A level. They can do that job well, very well. I can actually confess, I actually hired someone who had A level as a developer, and then they went to the Poly, Quaker Poly. They're one of our best in terms of programming. So we overpress. So you go and hire someone with a degree, they will come and fail to program, you pay them very well and things like that. We need to reconfigure the whole architecture around job descriptions and how we hire. So the path forward is to flatten the organizational structures, rationalize job titles, adapt skills-based hiring. Then you also measure what matters. That's what I would say. There are so many people who have gone against what has been proven through research. If you go to COVID, others died because they ignored science. The same applies others to struggle because they still ignore scientific evidence. If you go all the social science, HR and everything, there's so much good scientific research, experiments, controlled experiments done, meta-analytic studies done on what is there. But obviously research needs to be contextualized. Again, it doesn't necessarily follow that if it's working in your case, it's working. Keep it up. But if it's not working and you continue doing exactly the same wrong things, what is the end game in that kind of situation? So those are the factors that actually predict performance, as found in research, and they have not changed. They have not, and they are not going to change, but they are largely innate and partly childhood experience. Okay? I always fight with people who say I can change someone's behavior and personality. There's no one who can do that. Okay? If you hire someone who's too aggressive and put them in customer service, they will continue. I'm sure if they will send people for customer care and they come back is exactly worse sometimes. Because their propensity to be aggressive does not go away simply because they've gone for a customer care training. I also see other job adverts that say 40 years, I want a young and energetic person. How does the job that requires thinking need energy? What kind of energy is that? Okay? Because this is not physical, it's not the army, isn't it? So why would you want an energetic accountant who is 40 years? Yeah, Anna? Yeah, but it means they are sick. So let's separate sickness and say, because if you hire someone who is medically unfit, it's separate from actual mental alertness that comes with. And also there is a misconception that innovation comes from young people. There is actually no scientific evidence to show that. You can go and, if you got that evidence, I would love to see that. There is no scientific evidence that says a 40-year-old will not innovate more than a 39-year-old, 35-year-old. No. There's actually, I have looked at all that research because there was a discussion somewhere where I went deep into research to find out there is actually no correlation between age and innovation. You just need to put the right environment. And innovation is personality driven anyway. There are people who are naturally innovative, there are others who are not. So this business of putting age, unless you are hiring trainees, please, it doesn't help you. Then gender. I know people put gender. It's good for the optics, the balance, but it doesn't really improve performance at all, including on boards. There was initial research that says if you've got equal number of women and men, it means the board will work well. How many boards have collapsed with the equal? We have taken the company down with equal men and women. Many of them. What they actually found, McKinsey did a study in 2023 to dig deeper into that. They actually found that what matters more is cognitive diversity, which is the diversity in thinking, rather than demographic diversity. That's what they found. So if you're going to put a team together, look at how they think. Look at people who bring different ideas rather than saying, let's just put 10 women, and things will move. They won't move because of that alone. And leaders do matter in all this. Look at that research. In the 1980s, the conventional wisdom held that the best managerial incompetence was about 10%. That figure has actually moved to 50. Okay? The best rate of managerial incompetence, the way we hire and put people and things like that. This is a very interesting study, the Peter Principle. I'm sure you've heard about it, where we promote people to the highest level of incompetency. Okay? And if you look at this study, they found that if you promote your best potential managers, if you promote your best salespeople, sales actually go down in the team that they are managing. Okay? But if you take even not the best salesperson, but with good managerial potential, sales actually go up, as you can see from those two graphs there. Okay, then the other thing that you may need to be aware of, because managers do make a difference. There's a study that was done by MIT, McKinsey and McKinsey and the London School of Economics, where they looked at the impact of managerial practices. That study, you must look at it. It's a gem. the quality of managers does have a huge impact on the business. You can see, I'm sure you've heard about the bubble hypothesis. People who speak the most are likely to be made leaders regardless of whether they know what they're doing or not. Okay. They also found that people who volunteer to lead also do the worst performance. They say, who can lead this team? Me. They do a very bad job in leading. Again, going back to the science, you must look what drives performance, not all these other things that people are doing. Lastly, as I get to the end, you can't finish the issue of job scope without talking about AI, hybrid work, and things like that. Here are a few facts that we need to be aware of. Working from home does not lead to increased productivity. It doesn't. It actually reduces productivity by 20%. Okay? It reduces productivity by 20%. The earlier studies that were showing an increase, they were going to ask Sekai when she's home, are you productive? He said, yes. She's loving to be home. So they were self-report. Later on, people started doing experiments. Microsoft, all these big tech companies started doing experiments. And they then discovered and said, these are working from home and these are working from the office. Actual experiment. And they found that those who were working from home, performance went down by 20%. But the good thing about working from home is that turnover goes down significantly by 32%. Okay, so people who are working from home love it. And they want there, and one of the studies actually does indicate that the major attraction is that just running away from a nagging boss. Okay, so they're running away from you, some of you. If that's why you find during COVID, most people are extremely happy to work from home, because once in a while they walk into their gut and do what other things while it's you're on call. Okay, then they come back and say, can I take you back to this? Because they were not there anyway, so they didn't hear anything. Okay, so that's the reality, that is the, and if you get the presentation, those are some of the experiments that were done on working from home. Remember, on the quality of evidence, experiments are at the top, in terms of scientific evidence, at the top. Because you're actually using a controlled experiment, just like what you do in medicine, in terms of results. Then AI is here to stay. I'm sure Cloud, which is a peak, and ChatGPT released their data the last few weeks, I'm sure you've noted. And this is some of the data, just codified it and analyzed it. The people that have been using AI, you can see the growth in the people that are using AI. And also, when you look at 2024, 47 were doing it for work, and now, and 53 personal, and that has shifted. And work is now 27%, and personal has gone to 73. People are asking for therapy. What do I do when my husband wants to divorce me? So what do I do? That's what they do. Instead of asking work issues, so they go into personal. I've got a headache, a persistent headache, what should I do? So they go into personal issues rather than work. And what are the things that are focusing on? You can see practical guidance, seeking information, writing, and others, they combined. Demographics, then we look at the cloud one, which is Anthropic. What are the conversations that people are having? When we look at cloud, it's mostly software. Occupations use AI on tasks, as you can see there. So which are the ones that are using AI the most? You can see computer and maths is the highest at 37.2. That's the highest. Then the rest are not using that much AI. If you want to look at it, if you look at the Delta study that was done by McKinsey, you'll find that the core skills that they found to be the skills of the future are the ones that AI is now doing. As you can see, critical thinking was one of them. Writing, programming, reading. The only one that you can take away and AI may not be able to do is interpersonal skills that you find there. Okay, so what are the strategic implications for that? If I were you, and I'm not seeing the adoption of AI at a very high level. I've been interacting, training people. It's extremely low. It's really used at a very routine kind of stuff. Companies have actually not gone out of their way to identify high-value AI use cases in your organization. That's the first thing that you should do. Where should we apply AI? Which roles? Where should we put the investment in AI in order to build our capabilities to serve our customers better? If you look now, we still have call centers, isn't it? we still have struggle. You do your whatever money transfer. It's get lost somewhere. You want to call someone, you put on hold until you give up. They take the money. Instead of giving an AI agent, I think you saw Salesforce is retrenching massive amounts of people because they have now using AI agents to do most of the work. So there is a lot of work that we can do, and I think most organizations are missing a glorious opportunity to up the capacity. MIT and Boston Consulting did an experiment to see what is the impact on AI on productivity. But they did an experiment in the consulting field. They found that productivity goes up by 42% using AI for average performers. But for top performers, it goes up by 25%, by 27%. So you can see the uplift value on the average performer is massive. Okay. But that does not take away a hiring. If you hire the wrong person, AI will not help that much. Okay, so let's not think AI will take away our mistakes and correct those. They may not be able to do that. So the best way is to really design the jobs in order for you, whatever roles you have, to interact with the AI and give more value, and give more, enable you to do more and value adding using AI. I was experimenting a few days when I went to Masvingo for one of the presentations. So they were saying, so how can we have an application that can help people with mental health and everything? I just went into cloud and gave it an instruction. It developed an app, waking up. Within 10 minutes, it was up and running. So why are we not doing that? So there's a lot of scope in all this. So in summary, one of the first things that we need to do is to reconfigure the jobs that we have. There is a tendency among most of the organizations to copy job descriptions from the internet and use those to hire. Those jobs do not speak to your own particular needs. They are speaking to a generic need. That is, I see some people say, can you share a job of a salesperson with me? I said, what are they selling? What are they selling? Sugarcane. So if they're selling sugarcane, you can't just copy that job description from the internet. There are certain unique qualities that you require for that person to be able to do that job. So you must tailor-make your job descriptions to your own situation. And don't over-rely on incumbents to produce job descriptions. Job descriptions are produced by subject matter experts. If you don't have the capacity to do job descriptions using subject matter experts, you let the incumbents produce the job descriptions, and then you have subject matter experts validate them. That's how you do proper job descriptions, because it affects pay, it affects grading, it affects many other things that you may have. The second part is our organizations are poorly structured, top heavy, too many managers managing other managers, and very few span of control, the very limited span of control. As a result, bloated structures and top heavy. I thank you.
Up your name, where you're from, and your question. Let's.
Thank you. I am Tsungai Reid from Legacy Mushrooms. So thank you very much for your presentation. So interestingly, from our earlier on presentation, I was just writing down some growth plans and ideas, and I actually had someone in mind looking at upscaling my business. I had someone in mind, and I actually wrote to meet with so-and-so so that we discuss, I discuss prospect of employment or taking that person for the job. Then you come with your presentation and saying we are grading people instead of grading jobs, and that's why we are not seeing many innovations and so on. And I think your presentation came at the right time, but I just want to, I know you've kind of summarized, but for someone starting as myself, who is still on the starting, you are growing, I think this is very helpful, just to help how the best way to really take on somebody. Because my thinking, to be honest, was like, I already had someone in mind for a particular year, and maybe, what would you say? I know we would have things like, apply, but I just want you to assist in terms of how best for us starting up to be able to add on or to employ somebody into the business.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, thank you. So my advice to you is that it's you've got actually a very good opportunity to start well. Why am I saying that? Most of the startups, the problem that they have, they go and look for people that they know. They go and look for relatives who are cheaper. They go and look for friends to come and work for them. If you are really constrained, it works sometimes. But most of the time, we then compromise on the quality of the people that we require to turn around the business, because we are taking people that we already know. What I would say is be very thorough at entry. Make getting into your organization not as easy as just walking through a garden. It must be tough for anyone to join your business because of the standards that you set for yourself. I can give you two examples. These organizations have already grown. So I had 2 conversations with senior CEOs of very successful organizations. They came back to me and said, you know what, we made mistakes. I said, why do you think we made mistakes? He said, we hired people, we were just taking the people, large numbers. Then at some stage, things started going down. And one of the CEOs, when I had a conversation with them, I said, did you really look at the people that you have hired? Do you think they are doing the job that you want done? He said, I'm sure they are. At that stage, he then said, why don't we do a capacity assessment for them? Where not a skills audit. A capacity assessment is different from a skills audit is useless, basically. Because a skills audit just says this person has got a qualification and experience. And everyone, if you look generally from what we have done over the years, roughly close to about 92% of people who are in jobs, they do have the qualifications and they do have the experience for those roles. But capacity goes beyond that. Say, do they have the capability to do the job? And we then found huge gaps, and they collaborated. We gave them the reports and said, let's have a round table. And you present your results, I present mine. They were all tallying the results. Where they said this one is really taking the business down, they were really taking the business down. Where I said this one, if it's your brother or sister, you can keep them because you may have problems at home, but they are actually not adding any value in this business. And very few people have got the courage to be able to do that. So that's the reason why I'm saying, what an opportunities, please start on the right note. You will remember this discussion one day if you don't. Because at some stage, you will get to a stage, because as you grow, there's also competition. People are copying what you are doing and everything. And you really need people who are switched on. And that's key. And as you are hiring, you must also be very careful that performance is not portable. Okay? Performance is not portable. There are people who do well in one organization and fail in another. The reason being that if you go to an organization awash with resources, with systems, with everything that you need, naturally you are bound to do well. And you go to another organization where you are supposed to work with limited resources, you'll find that you struggle. Those are all factors that you need to take into consideration. You must read a book called The Portability of Performance and Talent. It's a very book, it's all research-based. A book that says, as you are hiring, you need to be extremely careful. A good record also does not necessarily translate into a good record into your business. But I do know that we use that. So my advice is, please be as thorough as you can. Make sure you interview people. One of the challenges is that, remember, when you are interviewing, most managers tend to hire people who look like them, who walk like them, who talk like them, who went to school like them. So they hire people who are actually a mirror image of themselves. Okay, if you speak English the same way the hiring manager is speaking, they say this is a good one. Okay, even if you don't know nothing, you know nothing about the job. I know some organizations that I've been in interviews for years, 20 years. Someone walks into the interview, somebody doesn't have energy. I said, what energy do you require for this person? They are just an accountant. What energy do you require? They are not here to lift drums of oil. Eh? So why would you need energy? But they don't, the way they walk. Imagine someone failing to get the job because of the way they walk. Okay? Because of the handshake. I'm sure you know, because of the handshake. So interviews, most of them are unstructured. Let me give you a typical example, which is common. You may be experiencing the same. So we are interviewing for a finance, but we are interviewing a finance manager, candidates, 5 of them. Who is sitting on the panel? The procurement manager, the HR manager, the ops director, the FD, and maybe the CEO. Then the questions that are on the part that you are asking the candidate, the panel members themselves can't answer the questions. So how are they rating? You just imagine. So how are they rating? What is free cash flow? HR manager, no clue. But they are sitting there ticking. Wonderful. What wonderful about what? You understand? So the majority of the interviews that are actually happening in practice in this country and elsewhere, they are actually unstructured interviews. A structured interview asks candidates all the questions exactly in the same manner. Very little follow-up questions unless it's for clarification, so that you can standardize, you can compare. We have got a marking scheme. What is the correct answer and what is a 1, 2, 3, 4 if you are using a rating. Most of the time, people just go in there and rate. Even questions that we don't know, even when I started in this profession, I was also just rating. So I'll look at how well they speak. Are they a nice person? I'm sure you're also aware that pretty, in the end, some people tend to be overrated anyway. Okay, thank you.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Shots fired, but we move. All right, next question.
Thank you very much. My question, or
Your
probably...
name and where you're from, sir?
Oh, sorry, thank you. I'm Theodas from Success Lighter. So my question is that how best... Thank you. My question is, how best can we promote our own local scientific evidence? I like the way you were quoting research, but sometimes I find a bit that there is a bit misalignment with the evidence that you find from international scholars and what our local scholars can also produce. So how best can we bridge the gap and quickly close down so that we do research that is locally based, Harare, Bulawayo, something like that? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so remember, scientific research, most of it's done by people in universities, isn't it? Your lecturers that are supposed to produce scientific research. They are, some of them, very good scientific research. On the recruitment side, for example, there is actually others who have done that as part of their PhD, and it confirms exactly the same results that are there. Douglas Jomuya and myself did one on mental health, and it was published in a journal. Confirms exactly the same result that I found somewhere else. That's a very good idea to localize the research, but very few people also have got the research skills to be able to do it properly. Most of us use convenient sampling, and those researchers got standards for you to be able to generalize the results. The reason why we are generalizing the results is, remember meta-analysis like the Schmidt one, you are looking at over 200 scientific, top quality scientific papers that are analyzed for quality and then put into, rerun the data again from those. That's why meta-analysis and experiments, we tend to rely on those more than ours. But if we had the money, we would do. But we have also done localized. For example, if we do assessments in a particular company, we also run with their own data. And most of the time, I was giving you those two examples of those companies that started as startups. And the results confirmed that there was actually a correlation between performance and those factors. And zero correlation with age. For example, when we did for a bank, we found that the branch, we ran assessments for branch managers, many of them. And we looked at the performance of the branches over a period of 3 years. We found that the level of education of the branch manager had zero correlation with the actual performance of the branch. Okay, that's one of them. There were many others. Actually, that we published, that is a case study in the Netherlands. There's another one that we did on the drivers as well, and also published that case study, well-cited case study that we published. So we do have local studies, but I don't quote them most of the time because they may not generalize. I quote most of the generalizable research, but if there was time, I could actually go on to each one of them and give you a local one. That is it, but it's only one, remember. Those ones, it's an amalgamation of many others.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take you as the last question, and then we move to our last presenter, yeah? I'll take you as the last question, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Tatenda Chiteka from Injector Analytics. Yeah, we are a startup company into location intelligence or location analytics. And one of the challenges that we're having is there aren't enough skills or that are aligned to our line of work, since we are pioneering a new line of work. And it's more of a thinking, critical thinking job. How can you advise a startup like us in cases where we find people with capacity, they would be expensive to hire? You need to pay them. Those that have capacity, you can train them and they have the capacity to then deliver the job. So it's now a balancing act. The skills aren't local, and where they are available, they are expensive for the state that you are at. Yeah, that's my question.
Okay.
So Memory is saying that he's from the you said local what?
Location intelligence.
Oh, location intelligence, and it requires critical thinking, and it's not locally available.
It is. It is available, but like he indicated, the skills where you find a top-notch, in every job anyway, where you find a top candidate, they are also extremely expensive. So because of funds, sometimes then settle for the below average or just the average person that is there. Then they don't give you the scale that you want in terms of growing your business. We even when we started 20 years ago, it was the same thing. So what I then did for myself is that I have never hired anyone to work for us, for example. Over the past 20 years, who has worked anywhere, I trained fresh. And I don't care what degree you have done, as long as you can think. You must not restrict yourself to IT or mathematics. You must go into engineering. You must go into religious studies. There are people who have done religious studies who think very well. I cut across in terms of hiring. Most of this work, especially the work that you do, as long as someone has got computational skills and the analytical skills, they will be able to do that job very well. I started probably all the analytics people that you are seeing in organization, I trained most of them myself. Having done statistics, I'm not a statistician, but my training as a psychologist allowed me to do advanced statistics, and I learned analytics from there. Most of the big companies, they've come to poach from me. But I really don't care about that. I keep on producing. But I have gone out. Remember, I was talking about that lady who did chemistry. Okay, so if you restrict yourself to say, I want to go and get this top IT guy from UZ or wherever, you will find them very expensive. In any case, you won't be able to compete with the big guys anyway. They will be taken, either locally or external. So broaden your talent pool so that you bring in different skills. Just the experiment, we can discuss this further, just to share experience from what we did ourselves. Thank you.